So I understand that you want to learn how to help your child manage their fever naturally without harsh interventions or medications. That's what we're going to talk about in this video today. This is a question that I get frequently from moms. You know, their child has a fever, and yes, they understand that they need to let the fever ride its course, but they still want to know what are the best natural ways to support our child through a fever, through an illness. It's really important to understand that a fever happens in response to an infection, in response to an immune system activation. So the fever in and of itself isn't really the target of treatment, shouldn't really be the target of treatment. We really want to do things to support the body's ability to fight the infection. Most illnesses have a natural course, you know, a certain length of time that they're going to last, and there really isn't that much we can do to really shorten that too much. One of the things we can do is help support the body so that it can have a nice, robust response, robust enough so that it can clear the illness as quickly as possible. So here's some basic things that we can do to help to treat a fever naturally. One of the things I want to say is that we really want to limit our use of fever reducers. So depending on where you are in the world, that might be Tylenol or it might be called by a different name. We really want to allow the body to mount a fever so that it can fight off infection. And if you have questions about fevers and what's happening during fevers, I'll link my first video below where we really go into what temperature to let the fever get to and what's actually happening for a fever and reasons why we want to let the fever run its course. I also have another video that really explains more in depth of why we really don't want to give fever reducers. But in short, Tylenol can deplete glutathione, and glutathione is really important for our body's ability to detoxify. And it also, in reducing the fever, we reduce the robustness of the response of the immune system, in essence, lengthening the course of the illness. Okay, so here's some things that we want to do if our child has a fever that can help keep them more comfortable. The first thing we want to do is to keep them home, allow them to rest. Rest is one of the most important things that we can do when our child has a fever, simply because so much energy is being used inside to fight off the infection. So healing happens best when our body can rest. If your child is feeling really hot and is really uncomfortable, it's perfectly fine to use a cool compress. It's important not to use a cold compress, but to use a cool compress. So slightly, tap water, slightly colder than room temperature. And you want to put that in places where blood supply is close to the body. So that would be like the insides of the palm here, the back of the neck. You could even do the soles of the feet. Some people find it helpful to have a cold compress on their stomach, really anywhere that makes your child comfortable. The key here is that you want to use a cool compress and you want to change it often. Sometimes when children have fevers, they're really sick, they're really lethargic. And so sometimes it's hard to get herbal remedies and teas and things, which we're going to go over later, into them. This is where homeopathy shines. There are a few homeopathic fever remedies that are really easy for kids to take. My favorite is belladonna, but you can also use aconite or chamomilla. The chamomilla is especially great for fevers that are induced during teething. These are found really easily at your vitamin shop or online. Another thing to remember is that fevers often cause sweating. Your kid may be hot and losing fluids, so it's really important to replenish fluids frequently. Sometimes I will recommend just waking your child up to give them a couple sips of water or a diluted juice, diluted fruit juice. It's also really good to remember that even if your children are not drinking and they don't want to drink a cup of water, sometimes they will eat a piece of fruit, and fruits are really naturally hydrating. So I love using watermelon, citrus fruits, or grapes. Any fruit that they'll take can help to replenish sips of water. Next, we're going to talk about the herbal and nutrition remedies that we can use to help support the immune system to fight a fever. But if you've learned something new, or if you're really interested in this kind of content, please subscribe so that you can make sure that you get notified as I upload new things. All right, so herbal remedies shine really brightly in the realm of helping our children's bodies fight off infection and fight off fevers. So if you know the cause of the fever, like another child in school was diagnosed with something and they sent a note home, or someone else in the house has been diagnosed with something, it's a little bit easier to target our treatment. But in general, even if you don't know the cause, I love the following. So I love adding echinacea. Echinacea is helpful because it's antimicrobial and antiviral. So if you're not really sure what the cause of the illness is, this is going to kind of give you a nice broad spectrum. Use echinacea for the duration of the illness. You don't want to be using it kind of all year round. You want to use it just during the time of illness because it is pretty powerful and we don't want the bugs to sort of get resistant to it. So you want it to have its full power when your child is illness. You can get echinacea in a tincture, in glycerites. There's recipes where you can make cough drops out of it, all different ways. But the point is to get some echinacea in a few times a day to help boost immune properties. Another one that I really like is elderberry syrup or elderberry gummies, elderberry cough drops. Elderberry is super popular, but the reason is because it works. It's also antiviral and antimicrobial, and the nice thing about it is it has a really pleasant taste, so it's easy for kids to take. Another thing that's really amazing to help boost the immune system in the event of a fever is grandma's chicken soup. And the reason is, of course, the love that grandma put in, but also because there's so many good immune fighting foods that we put in to a soup. Garlic, thyme, rosemary, oregano are all naturally antimicrobial. And so getting some of those into our kids, even if they won't eat the soup, but making the soup and letting it sit for a little while and then just giving them some of the broth can be really helpful. The other thing that's great about soup that isn't always talked about is that it very often has salt in it. And so it can be a nice, easy way to replenish some of the electrolytes that might be lost when your child is sweating during a fever. So this is a good way to help boost hydration during fever and to replace those lost electrolytes. Carrots or other vegetables that are added in are great because they give us some antioxidants that are necessary for immune boosting. So like I mentioned, sometimes when our children are sick or they have fevers, they may not want to actually eat the soup because they don't have a lot of appetite, but spoonfuls, syringes full, little sips of broth are great. There are a couple things to have on hand that are also really helpful in these fever situations. The first that I love to supplement is vitamin D. Vitamin D is so important for immune health, and so it's really important to make sure that we're checking our children's vitamin D levels, but also supplementing during an illness. Another thing that I love to supplement is zinc. Zinc is also really important for so many of the immune reactions that happen to help our children clear out what the underlying infection is so that they can feel better sooner. I also like to make sure that I have some vitamin C on hand. Vitamin C is a great antioxidant and it helps, again, the immune system do what it needs to do to help kick the infection out so that the fever goes down more quickly. Last but not least, I love to add a little bit of selenium when a child is sick. Again, these 4 things are all really important to help make sure that the immune system is functioning optimally. Hopefully this information has been helpful. I encourage you to save this video so that the next time your child has a fever, you can refer back to it and use some or all of the strategies to help your little one feel better soon. See you in the next video.